Welcome to Rookie Aspirant. I'm so glad you're joining us today. Because, well, we've got a fascinating explainer lined up for you. We're going to unpack the deeply complex geohistorical roots of the 1947 to 1948 First India-Pakistan War. You know, this is one of those topics where history, geography, and demographics all just collide, literally shaping the modern world as we know it. We're going to examine the origins of the Kashmir conflict, not through opinions, but by looking strictly at the hard geopolitical facts and the actual historical timelines that defined the whole era. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover Kashmir's strategic geography. Number 2, demographics of the state. 3, the pangs of partition. 4, the conflict begins. And finally, number 5, war's key sectors.
Right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Kashmir's strategic geography.
Now, before we can even begin to wrap our heads around the political and military conflict of 1947, we absolutely have to understand the stage itself. The geography is literally the foundation for this entire story. When you look at the broader Jammu and Kashmir region back in 1947, the state sat like this massive, somewhat rectangular block right up in the extreme northwest corner of the subcontinent. And what's absolutely crucial to grasp here is the sheer scale of the place. It was the largest of all the Indian princely states before independence. We're talking over 222,000 square kilometers. To put that into perspective for you, that is roughly double the size of Denmark, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg combined. Just a massive, sweeping expanse of territory dominating the high Himalayas.
And you know, its massive size was really only matched by the importance of its borders. It was surrounded on almost 3 sides by foreign states. To the east, you've got Tibet. Up north is Chinese Turkestan or Xinjiang. Out west is Afghanistan, separated by the narrow Wakhan corridor, which actually extends all the way to China and separates Tajikistan from Gilgit-Baltistan. And then, of course, to the south and southwest, you have Pakistan, alongside the Indian states of Punjab and Himachal Pradesh, to the south and southeast. So sitting right at this absolute crossroads of South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East, it's no wonder this place was a heavily contested geopolitical prize right out of the gate.
Moving on to Section 2, demographics of the state.
Okay, so geography is really only half the story, right? To truly grasp the tensions that exploded in 1947, we have to look at the people. Prior to the transfer of power, the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir was this incredibly diverse mosaic of ethnic and religious communities. For instance, the Kashmir province, which included the Kashmir Valley and Muzaffarabad, had a Muslim population of over 90%. But if you look at the Jammu province, it was roughly split. You had mixed numbers of Hindus and Muslims in eastern districts like Udhampur and Jammu, while the western districts like Mirpur and Poonch held a Muslim majority. Meanwhile, way out east in the mountainous Ladakh district, there was a significant Buddhist presence, though its Baltistan area was majority Muslim. And finally, the Gilgit Agency up north was overwhelmingly Muslim. So you have this highly complex mix of identities all about to be caught up in a massive geopolitical earthquake.
Let's get into Section 3, the pangs of partition. Let's shift our focus to the actual political spark that ignited the region during the totally chaotic transfer of power in 1947. And man, this timeline moves fast. On August 12, 1947, the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir sent telegrams to both India and Pakistan offering a standstill agreement. He was basically trying to hit the pause button and delay making a final decision on accession. But before October rolled around, the state only ended up signing that standstill agreement with Pakistan. India didn't sign one. Obviously, that kind of political limbo couldn't last forever. On October 26, 1947, the state officially joined the Indian Union. And literally the very next day, October 27th, the Indian Army landed at Srinagar Airport.
But as we talk about all these dates and political maneuvers, we really have to remember the harsh human reality on the ground. The partition era was defined by immense displacement and absolute turbulence. When you see historical images of incredibly crowded trains from the time, it perfectly captures the mass migration and just the sheer desperation people were facing. The decisions being made by politicians at the very top were drastically altering and honestly completely upending the lives of millions of everyday people.
This brings us to Section 4, the conflict begins.
So as political maneuvering quickly gave way to armed conflict, the stated objectives from both sides were clear but completely opposed. Pakistan claimed that the majority Muslim population of Kashmir would have naturally chosen to accede to Pakistan if they'd been given a plebiscite, and they made attempts to enact the state. In direct response to those movements on the ground, and following the state's official accession to India, Indian Army troops landed in Srinagar on October 27. And that moment right there marks the definitive start of what history calls the Indo-Pakistan War of 1947 to 1948.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, War's Key Sectors.
We're going to zoom in on the actual boots-on-the-ground military actions and the immense geographic hurdles these soldiers were dealing with. Getting re-anchored geographically, if you look towards the bottom left of the region's map, you'll find the western sector. This specific area, around towns like Jangar, Nowshera, and Punch, became a primary theater for some really heavy early engagements. The rough terrain here completely dictated how supplies flowed and where both armies could even advance.
And it really was a brutal tactical reality for the soldiers out in the field. You had artillery units stationed out in the brush, just completely exposed to the elements. During Operation Vijay, for example, which was launched between March 15 and 18, 1948, specifically to recapture Jangar, tactical maps show just how meticulously the rivers, roads, and dirt tracks had to be mapped out. Every single thrust through that challenging topography required intense, careful coordination.
Meanwhile, the northern sector was an entirely different kind of nightmare. Logistically, it was brutal. The central Kashmir Valley is cut off from the Gilgit and Baltistan region by the Burzio Mountains, part of the towering Nanga Parbat range. To even access this area, forces had to use the ancient caravan route between Srinagar and Gilgit, which goes right through the Burzio Pass. The crazy thing here is the elevation. This pass sits at a staggering height of 4,000 meters. Trying to fight a war and just maintain basic supply lines at that kind of altitude, it requires immense resilience and unbelievable strategic planning.
So, we've walked through the massive geography, the deeply complex demographics, and the incredibly rapid timeline of the 1947 to 1948 conflict. And I want to leave you with this one thought to ponder. Given its complex demographics and its undeniably strategic location at the crossroads of Asia, how does the legacy of 1947 continue to shape the unresolved geopolitical reality of Kashmir today? It's a huge question, and one that really demands a deep understanding of the history we just explored. Subscribe for more such content.